Okay, so we're going to be looking at selecting first. So the two selection tools we're looking at are at the top here, the black arrow and the white arrow, the selection tool and the direct selection tool. So the selection tool, the black arrow, allows you to click on things to select them. If I hold down Shift and click on more things, I can add to my selection. And if I keep holding Shift and click on those selected items, I can deselect them. If I drag from a blank area and I touch multiple objects, they will become selected. I don't want to drag from over something because then I'm going to literally move that object. So it has to be from a blank area that you're going to drag across, or even from outside of your document. The direct selection tool works with points and paths, the things that make up objects. So you'll see that if I take my direct selection tool, I can select a corner point and I can adjust the shape of an object. I could even drag over the edge of an object, and now I'm selecting that path and moving it. So the direct selection tool deals with the components that make up an object or a shape. And if I had an image in here, I could select that image with the direct selection tool. Okay, so that is the selection tool and the direct selection tool. Let's have a look at content types. So we have three different types of content. We have graphics, we have unassigned, which is just a shape, and we have text frames. So if you create shapes, you can use any tool you want to create that shape, because afterwards, providing you haven't put content in that shape, you can reassign that shape to a different type of content. So here we can see the top row is assigned to graphics. The second row is assigned to nothing, unassigned, in other words, just shapes. And the third row is assigned to text. And we can see that because there's an import and an output and the open type icon. That's how we can identify that this is a text frame. Of course, the graphic frames are identified by the cross going through them. So if I wanted to reassign, let's say, this top center graphic frame to be text, I would just right click on it and go to Content, Text. And now it's assigned to text. I could also, so with this third box here, I could also just take my type tool and click on it. And providing it doesn't already have a graphic in there, it's going to reassign it to being text. And I can then just add placeholder text. The moment I put content in a box, it's locked in terms of its assignment. So this box here has an image in it, so I cannot right click and reassign the content. The moment I click on that little content grabber and I delete the image out of there, I can now reassign it to whatever I want to. Let's just say unassigned. Okay, and the same with text. If I have text in a text frame, I cannot reassign that to being a graphic or unassigned. The moment I remove all that text out of there, I can now reassign this to being, let's say, a graphic. Okay, so it's a pretty flexible way of working. In terms of creating basic geometric shapes, text frames, if you use your type tool, you're limited to creating rectangles. It's not like Illustrator. I cannot just click and make text. I have to drag a frame, and then I can type inside there to add my text. If you want your text to be a non-rectangular shape, you would need to create that shape first, and then either use the type tool to turn it into a text frame, or right click and go to content text. So for example, if I created an ellipse and I use the ellipse frame tool, I would then need to take my type tool and click on it to make it text, or take my selection tool, right click, content, text. Okay, and now I can add my text to it. Okay, in terms of creating graphic frames, you have your rectangle frame, ellipse frame, and polygon frame tools. So it's fairly limited, but you also have these other tools here, like the pen tool and the pencil tool, which I'll cover next. So if I wanted to create a rectangle to contain a graphic, I would just drag. If I wanted a specific size, I could click and enter that specific size here. Another cool trick is if you start dragging, before you release, if you use your up, down, left, or right arrows, you can add a grid. So if I wanted a 9 image grid, I would use my up, down, left, and right arrows, and then when I release, I now have 9 boxes for images. So that applies to everything. So even if I was making a text frame, up, down, left, and right arrows to create multiple text frames. So that's actually a pretty neat trick. If you wanted to create a graphic frame in, let's say, a star shape, you could use your polygon frame tool and you could just click and you could set your star inset value. I've got mine set to 50% here to make a star shape, and then put your image inside that star. Okay, so it's fairly limited, but I think there's enough here for you to be able to create pretty much any type of graphic or text or unassigned frame that you want. The unassigned frames would be these ones here: rectangle, ellipse, polygon, and of course you have your pen and pencil tool, which I'll cover next. All right. And also you can use your direct selection tool to reshape these objects, obviously. So just the same as you would in Illustrator. Okay, let's look at slightly more complex shapes. So not rectangles or ellipses, but very sort of organic type shapes. And I'm just going to do it for text frames because it applies to pretty much all of these. So if I use my pen tool, and this isn't a pen tool lesson, if you want to learn how to use the pen tool and you haven't learned Illustrator, then you're going to have to just go and learn the pen tool from, there's plenty of videos on YouTube about that. But if you've already learned Illustrator, you'll know the pen tool. Same with Photoshop. Pen tool is a much more powerful tool in Illustrator, but in InDesign, it still does the basics. So if I wanted to, for example, make a shape, a heart shape for text, I would just use the pen tool. Same shortcuts, same method as I would in Illustrator. Okay, that's not a very good heart, but you get the idea. And then because I want it to be text, I could just take my type tool and just click inside there, and then I have text going in the shape of a heart. I could also combine shapes. So if I wanted text to be in a particular shape, so let's just say I'm going to draw a rectangle here, and then I'm going to draw an ellipse. And the same shortcuts as Illustrator apply here. Shift to make a perfect circle, Alt or Option to draw from the center out, and so on. So I now have these two shapes. If I select those two shapes and I go to Object, Pathfinder, Add, now becomes one shape. And then of course I can right click and say Content Text, and then I can fill it with placeholder text. Okay, so the same rules apply for graphic frames and unassigned frames. Use the Pathfinder and use the pen tool. The pencil tool is more freehand. So whatever shape I wanted to create, the pencil tool allows me to create a more free-form shape. I could then take my type tool and turn that into a text frame, or I could make it a graphic frame and place an image inside there. Okay, so the pencil tool is more freeform. You can explore these other two features that come with it, the smooth tool and the erase tool. So if I want to smooth out certain points, I can just drag over them, and if I want to erase points, same thing. Okay. Unassigned, what else? Oh, and one other thing. This is a little bit more advanced because you haven't learned how to create and control text yet. But if you wanted to put a picture inside some text, so if I just create, let's just say 2026, and I'm just going to make this big. If if I wanted to put an image inside here, I would have to convert this text to outlines, same as you would in Illustrator. So type, create outlines, and let's just make it bigger like that. And then I would have to right-click Content, Graphic. And now I could put an image in there. So Control or Command D, there's an image, and you can see I now have an image inside that shape. So that's also another option. All right, so I think that's enough about creating shapes. Let's just finish off by doing a very simple example. So here, this file is called Creating Shapes. The file before was called Objects. You can find the link in the description. So if I wanted to create the shapes in order to recreate this cover, so I'll kind of reverse engineer it, it would be really, the way I would approach it is I would just use my normal shape tools, so rectangle tool, and I would create a rectangle for this text here. Let's just be a little bit more precise. And I'm going to fill it with a color so that we can see it. So I'm just going to say black, 40% tint. And then here we have the main masthead. So I'm going to create a box for that. And again, black, 40%. And then down here, same. Okay, so that's my text taken care of. So I'm going to select, so holding Shift, select these three, right click, content, text. Okay, and then for the images, I'm going to start with a ellipse frame tool, and I'll go to this middle one here. I'm holding Alt and Shift to make a perfect circle from the center out. And I will assign it to black, 40% tint. Okay, and then I'm going to take my selection tool, hold down Option or Alt to make a copy, and I'll drag that to the side here, holding Shift to keep it in line. Now, I don't want this overlap here, so I'm going to take my scissor tool, and I'm going to snip on the bleed line here, there and there. And now I can delete that half. Okay, and let's do the same on this side. So select Alt or Option, drag to make a copy, holding Shift to keep in line. Scissors. Let's snip and get rid of that. Okay, so obviously this is a rush job, but you get the idea. So now we've got our three text frames, we've got these three graphic frames, and we need one big graphic frame in the background. So I'm going to draw from bleed to bleed here with the rectangle frame tool. And I'm going to set it to black, 20%. Okay. And then in my layers, I just need to move that down. So this is the rectangle here. I'll move it down there. And I'm going to select all of this stuff. So Control A to select all, Control G to group it. So I now have this group in my layers for all of my content shapes. And if I hide that group, you can see that I've got all the shapes that I need to recreate that cover. Okay, so not everyone works like this. I mean, some people just work as they go. They make frames, put stuff in it, move it around, and they just keep working like that. That's fine. It's the final result that matters. But this is a way for you to get used to the fact that InDesign works with shapes. So you create your shapes, you assign your shapes, you put your content in your shapes.